Two things attracted me to history. They're kind of unrelated, and I don't remember not being interested in history, so I'm just kind of guessing this is why I was interested. One is where I grew up. I'm from South Dakota, very small town, but at one point in my life, we lived in a little town named Badger. I went to a two-room schoolhouse there, and the county seat for that town was DeSmet, South Dakota, which, if you're a fan of the Little House on the Prairie books, you might recognize as being the little town on the prairie. And in fact, all the Wilders are buried there except for Laura, who's the author, of course, of the books. And I kind of got into that. We read those books when I was a kid, and they're vaguely historic. And they also kind of parallel my family's lives, all of whom came to South Dakota Territory as homesteaders in the 1880s and 90s. The other thing is the Civil War Centennial was going on when I was a kid. And whether it was Walt Disney movies on Sunday night or books, I was a Bruce Catton guy. That's kind of one of the popular historians of the Civil War that a lot of northern boys and girls, at least, would have read. And so I'm assuming that was in the air, and that's one reason I got interested in the Civil War, which is my main research field. My other field is children's history, and so I have Oxford is having me do the Oxford Handbook on the History of Youth Culture. And so there's about 23 or 24 essays written by people from the United States and Britain and other parts of the world about, the history of youth culture. And so that's an ongoing project. I'm co-editing a Civil War project, which is kind of fun, called Buying and Selling the Civil War. And it's a series, I think we have 16 essays, and that we just sent that one in. So that's finished except for revising and editing later on, of essays by other historians about ways that the Civil War was part of commerce after the war. My research that I'm just getting started is going to be kind of a straight Civil War topic about the 6th Wisconsin, which was a very famous regiment during the war. It had a very important role at Battle of Gettysburg, and had some famous people in it. It's kind of a nice hook to examine not so much the military part of the world. I'll certainly talk about the battles they were in, but more where they came from, because they really were from all over the state, and what happened after the war, how they remembered the war, how veterans organizations and this survivors of this unit were engaged, pensions, things like this. So I'm really at the very beginning of that process. I think books that might bring students or kids into history, that's really hard to say. They're going to get it from movies first, probably. I wouldn't be surprised, because this worked for my son, actually. Lord of the Rings movies. Now, he was never all that interested in history as such, but he watched the movie first, and then he'd read the books. I got him reading other books like that were similar. Video games. He was interested in World War II video games. And so, in fact, when he was in high school, he did a major project about the Holocaust, actually, which he kind of thought, well, I should see what the war was really about, And so I found that really interesting, that the games and the movies actually made him read more and be more interested. And I absolutely believe that's probably how it works. There's a series of games called Assassin's Creed, which he was really into. And they're all rooted in a historical period. And I have a feeling that they are a jumping off point for a lot of students. I tend to focus on the things that relate to my research. So it's not like I read all of Civil War history or all of children's history. I do the ones that are really central to what I'm working on at a given time. So that's the usual way through journals and book reviews and things like that. So it's nothing too interesting or dramatic, but it is very much guided by what I myself am doing. So it's not a lot of general reading. I hardly ever turn down a book review because it makes me read a book, and so that's kind of an automatic way of doing it. We're a very good department. I think at one level we're an extraordinary teaching department. And we have a lot of teaching award winners for one thing. That's historic. It goes back decades. And we have a number of, I think something like a third of our faculty have won a university or college teaching award in the last 10 years. But I think we're also a very active research department. You have to be. We have a Ph.D. program, and so we're expected to publish. We like to publish, and so I think we are across the board doing interesting things. We're pretty heavy into social history, cultural history. That's not by design. This is how it has worked with the faculty we've hired. And so I think what distinguishes us, and a lot of places could say this, I think, but in my mind, what distinguishes us certainly at Marquette is this commitment to teaching and research and really high quality production in both of those categories. We'll teach them the history. They need to come to Marquette with a willingness to learn history and to be aware of history.